Hello, hi, good afternoon. My apologies for the late start. Um, we were having a few technical challenges, but I think we are good now. My name is Henry. I'm the CEO of Citsys. I'm very pleased to be here. This afternoon, we're going to have a quick conversation on how parents can protect and keep their children safe whilst they are online. On this session, I'll be joined by Matthew. He's a CTO of Panda. And before we get started, I would like to introduce myself and then take you through a brief agenda, and then we can take it on from there. So as I said earlier, I'm the CEO of Citsys Ltd. At Citsys, for the past 14 years, we've been using technology to secure, support, and grow our clients' businesses across multiple sectors. We've got clients from 5 users to customers and clients as large as 6,000 plus end users. To secure, we've partnered with some of the best brands around the world to protect and provide solution for our clients' endpoints. So endpoint devices, IT infrastructure, email infrastructure, everything IT that needs to and that should be protected, we've got solutions for that. For support, we run an outsourced service, so we get customers to outsource the IT to us, and we manage that for them. For some customers, we provide full outsourced services. Some customers, we work with their existing IT teams. We also do IT, we do networks, projects, and various IT undertakings as per what our customers require. For growth, we like to align what our clients and our businesses require and make sure that IT is well aligned with that, and then so they can get the most value from the technology solutions that they've deployed. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce Matthew, who is the CTO of Panda, one of the leading technology solution providers. And he would tell us how parents can provide the best protection for their children whilst they use the internet. So thank you, Matthew, and please take it away.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining this session. Just want to confirm quickly, the screen sharing is up and working fine here?
Yes, I can see your screen,
okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, let's get on with it then. So today's subject is how to keep your families safe online. And this is really something that, especially if you're a parent, is quite a pressing concern. The internet itself, although it seems like it's been around forever, is actually a relatively new thing, generationally speaking. So there isn't a lot of experience on what it's like to actually raise a digital child. So what we've done here at Panda Security is we've released a version of our products geared towards helping parents manage their children's online exposure, as well as their interaction with technological devices, mobile phones and that kind of thing, because that's obviously one of the primary vectors through which youngsters will access the internet. So, I mean, what are our risks about having youngsters have access to mobile phones and the internet? Well, one of the major ones from a psychological perspective is cyberbullying. We are now all a lot more accessible to each other. We all have more visibility into each other's lives. And as a result, where an individual is vulnerable, they are, of course, more vulnerable to being targeted by pretty much anybody who's so inclined. So cyberbullying, definitely a thing, a major concern for youngsters today. And it's actually in somewhat replacing the traditional bullying that used to take place in schools. Right, so mitigating the cyberbullying threat, obviously very high up on parents' lists. We're also concerned about managing digital addictions. So addictions to things like online gaming or social networks. And there's actually a myriad of different addiction types that you can get related to digital content. But this is now becoming a very serious concern. And that concern is that there's a dependence on digital media in order to get some sort of self-satisfaction or to facilitate your social interactions. And that leads to a lack of independence. So when these youngsters don't have access to mobile phones anymore, they struggle to socialize. And that, of course, isn't very healthy for individuals. The other thing that is, of course, a primary concern is appropriate content. So online, children, of course, can be exposed to pretty much anything. You know, the internet's a really great place. It's a free and open resource, but it's also a relatively dangerous resource. So being able to manage the type of content that your children are exposed to is very important for their social and psychological development. So these are major factors that now mean that parents have to start to consider how it is that they manage that. It used to be in the old days, you know, your parents would decide which friends you used to be able to go play with. And nowadays, you know, you could potentially play with anybody in the world, you know, be they another minor or not. So, yeah, it can be a bit tricky. So, what have we done? Well, of course, in case you guys don't know, Panda Security, we're primarily a cloud-based endpoint security vendor. We cover a range of technologies that serve both the consumer or the home user, as well as a range of corporate products that we use to protect our corporate clients. For today, we're focusing on a product called Panda Dome and Panda Dome for Families. This is a collection of technologies that will allow you to monitor and protect your users. Sorry, I keep saying your users because that's that's the term we use, but it's actually your children. So to monitor and protect your children, who technically are users, but they're more than that, I guess. So yes, we've introduced the Panda for Dome Families, which is targeted specifically to helping you manage your children and their interaction with their digital devices. And this is going to be things like providing location services, emergency contacts, application control, all that kind of stuff through a remote management portal. Right. So things that you can do with the Panda for Families range of products. Of course, everybody wants to know where their children are. So being able to locate your loved one when they're potentially at school or when they should be at school, or if they're potentially at another location, especially if they're socializing on the weekends, that kind of thing. Being able to track in real time where your child is of course a very useful feature for parents. You can also, of course, monitor usage of applications on mobile devices. So you can keep tabs on what social media platforms and how much time they're spending on those social media platforms. And as a result of that, you can then choose to enforce policies around the blocking of those applications or limiting the times. There's some other, cool features that can be quite useful, especially if children are leaving their digital devices unattended. So one of the cool things is we have geolocation alerts, which will send out an alert if a phone or a mobile device travels a certain distance, and of course all this stuff is configurable by you. But very useful in case, say you have children at a sports event or who are traveling to a remote location and you want to make sure that their mobile device stays with the child, or that potentially that child stays in a specific location. So being able to do geolocation alerts, very useful and cool feature. And then of course what goes along with that is being able to track the history of the event. So you can actually see where your child has been, are they where they're supposed to be, and or if not, I guess you could take whatever action is appropriate. Cool. Then, of course, from a loss or theft perspective, being able to locate and wipe the devices is also pretty paramount. That's very much from a data privacy perspective. If a mobile phone happens to go, in fact, they do go missing, especially with children. It's not only mobile phones that will go missing; it's all sorts of stuff. A very new feature that we've added is the panic button, which is actually a button that allows the user or the child to send an alert to their parent to indicate that they may be in some kind of trouble. So the panic button, very useful way to instantly connect to a parent and indicate that there is a problem. And of course, the remote wipe, we spoke about that in the context of being able to locate the device in case of loss or theft. Right. So we're of course trying to solve the problem areas that we discussed earlier. We want to avoid unnecessary exposure to malicious online content, as well as malicious users. We want to prevent, and are now able to prevent, excess use cases of certain applications, such as social media, which can be detrimental to mental health. And then be able to safely report and monitor on the actions that your children have taken, in order to make sure that you as a parent have peace of mind, and you can be reasonably confident that you're doing the best you can in order to protect your child's online presence. Great stuff. Okay, so what I want to do quickly is just take you through some of the console elements around this. So just so that you get a feel for how the Panda products come together with Panda for Families. Like I mentioned earlier, we're a cloud-based vendor. So of course you have an online portal that's accessible anywhere, which allows you to connect to your various Panda licenses. Now, in this particular portal, we have two classes of license. We have the home user license, which is what you would run, say, on your desktop at home, or if your children have a gaming computer or something like that, or even potentially your work computer. You would run something like Dome Essentials, which is a very basic endpoint protection product, effectively an antivirus scanner. And then we also have the Panda for Families module, which is what allows you to extend that a bit further and go and actually protect the mobile devices. Now, the Panda for Families product has its own management console that allows you to manage multiple devices, and we can see that quite usefully here. And as you can see, I have two devices, my mobile device as well as my tablet, and they're both located at home. I don't really know how I feel about broadcasting my location across the internet, but it certainly works. So we're able to keep track of my iPad and my mobile phone as a result. What's really cool about this is that I can track this in real time. So if I want to see where my children are at any moment, I can simply log in from the web browser and then monitor the device from there. Of course, we can go in. I haven't been very far. I've basically moved from one side of the house to the other today. So not much location history there, but we can definitely go and view exactly what's taking place on my devices. Now, there is, of course, an app that you can install locally on your mobile device. So, of course, we're looking at the web console here. There is an app, I'll just bring up the screen sharing here, that effectively mirrors what we see in the console here. And this app is pretty cool. It's very useful. It gives you access to protection features such as the antivirus scanner, which is critical, especially if your children install a lot of content on their devices. So load a lot of apps or do a lot of downloads to their device. You're going to want to have some kind of antivirus scanner that's just double checking that what they have on their machine is safe. There are other security technologies like the VPN client, which is sort of outside of today's scope, but can be useful if you're wanting to, whoops, better take the sleep mode off there. There we go. So yeah, VPNs can be quite useful if you're wanting to facilitate anonymous online browsing, maybe for you as a parent. But then of course there is the Panda for Families module. So what you can see in the web console and what you can see in the local app is pretty much the same thing. So this allows me to now go and actually, inspect one of my devices if I need to go and see, where they are or what they're up to. Similar thing, yeah.
I have a quick question for you. So basically what this enables parents to do is be able to track where their children have been and where they are at in real time, correct? Especially if they enable location services. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
And this works, this works no matter where you are in the world?
No matter where you are, yeah. As long as there's some sort of cell phone reception or connection, we can track the device.
Which would really make parents less anxious about where their children are because in real time they can see where all their children are at. Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay.
So again, useful to check, say if your children are coming home from school or from a party or sports event, something similar to that, you can make sure that they are indeed en route and that they're going to make it home safely. But while we're on the app here, we can have a look, things like the motion alert allows us to set, for example, an alarm on the device in case the device actually moves. Oops.
Okay.
And then what we can do, don't look at my pin, please. Okay, there we go. And then what we can do is trigger alerts for that. And then, of course, there's an anti-theft feature. So if the device does get stolen, I can actually go and remotely trigger that the device gets locked and then wiped. And even if I wanted to take a picture of the user that's using the phone at the time it is stolen. Cool. Other features such as the app lock list, which will allow you as the parent to actually go through and enable and disable the apps that you would like your children to be able to run, as well as monitor sort of the history in terms of what's actually been taking place on their devices.
I can see a lot of older children absolutely not liking this because especially for children who are addicted to their games, Roblox and all the crazy games that they play these days. What you're saying is that parents can go and restrict access to these games or give them amount of time allocation that they can use on it, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct, yeah.
Ouch. Now that's absolutely great for parents.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to find a game. I don't have a lot of games or any, but yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can do exactly that to limit the amount of time that they spend. But I mean, not just gaming; it's social media apps as well. There is a known link.
How about websites?
So web filtering is unfortunately not a component of the Panda for Families suite, I guess. Not really sure why. I guess the content, especially if you're using apps such as Facebook, that kind of thing, that's already filtered based on the age of the user that you're in. And it does actually add to the cost of the product as well, because web filtering technologies, they pretty much have to function in real time. And I know with our other solutions, that is a module that we charge for separately.
Okay.
Cool. Alrighty, so I think I don't know if we have access to any of the if there's any questions that have come up or any concerns that have been generated through the Facebook feed.
Yes, we have a few questions. It may not be specific to Panda, but generally your insights and how parents, for example, can protect or what are some of the risks that children face online that you've come across? Yes.
Okay,
things like sexting and all those types of things that are happening. Yes. What are some of the risks that parents can face these days?
Yes, well, that is, of course, a very, very tricky subject. So in the presentation, we sort of discussed things like your cyberbullying, which because your children are considerably more exposed online, they're therefore also more accessible to bullies. In fact, it used to be that you could only be bullied by somebody who was in your school class or in your year at school. Now you can be bullied by literally anybody in the world. There's no real limit. So it does mean that your children are considerably more exposed. So bullying is a major problem, and definitely what happens online does affect children. Are very impressionable. So whatever happens online, it does affect their behavior and how they're going to approach things. So cyberbullying is definitely a major concern. Digital addictions are also, of course, a huge concern these days, especially addictions to social media, and they have known links to mental health problems. As a result of which everybody, with apps like Instagram and that kind of thing, you have a window into other people's worlds, and you have a window into a lot of people's worlds. And these worlds are generally very tailored. They represent the best of what these people are experiencing or going through. And it's very dangerous for children to compare themselves to that. They may not be having these exciting days from day to day that they see on their social media networks. And that can lead them to have a a lower impression of themselves as a result. So limiting their exposure to that is pretty key and critical. And then, of course, explicit content. So things like we've listed there sexting, but that also includes things like pornography, as well as explicit content that's shared through apps like WhatsApp videos and links and all that kind of stuff. So that of course can be very detrimental to the children on sort of both sides of the fence there. And it does mean that because the children now have access to the internet. I mean, when I first had access to the internet, I had to wait for a Friday night and then dial up a modem.
Absolutely,
I remember pictures loading from the top to the bottom. So for children these days, they simply are exposed to everything. The internet has no age limit or age restriction. It's a great platform in that it's open and accessible to everybody, but it does have its risks. And explicit content is, of course, one of those. So being able to monitor that usage is quite useful, which limits the exposure to sexually explicit content. And I want to sort of add to that it's not necessarily inappropriate content isn't just content that's of a sexual nature. There is also plenty of inappropriate political commentary, or there's in every category there is inappropriate content that you might want to monitor.
Especially for the ages, for the various ages. Yes, absolutely. Yes, yeah. So it may not be explicit, but it's not it's not appropriate for the age that some children may have access to. We have a question by Edna. How would parents restrict video downloads? What are some of the ways that they can restrict video downloads to ensure that their children are not downloading the wrong stuff? Yes.
So that's a very, very difficult thing to actually do. In the security industry, we talk about things like content filtering. So you've heard about web and mail filtering and anti-spam, but what the question that you're asking is actually around content filtering. Now, in IT networks, that's pretty easy to do because you're either working through a web browser or through a mail client, and we can filter those protocols. It's all standards based. But with your mobile device, every single social media provider has their own mechanism of distributing content. So doing effective content filtering on that, and of course, this content isn't necessarily tagged unless somebody goes and does so manually. So being able to filter out those tags is a very difficult thing to do. I think you will not find a foolproof solution. Even if you bought the most expensive firewall, if your child goes somewhere else or they connect to a 3G network, they would still have access to it, and if their friends WhatsApp them a video, they would still have access. There's no content filtering technologies to do that. So it is a risk, which is why it is important that you are monitoring their application usage. And from time to time, I guess it wouldn't hurt just to check what kind of content they are storing or receiving on their phones. Obviously, it can be a bit tricky from a privacy perspective with older children, but certainly, I have 2 kids now. They're young, 4 and 5 years old, but they're getting cell phones for Christmas. So that if they are at school or if they're at their grandparents' house, whatever, they're able to contact their parents. And rest assured, I'll be monitoring everything that they do, every game that they install, all that kind of stuff on their endpoint. Yeah.
Okay. So what basically I'm hearing you say, Matthew, is that I guess one of the ways to manage content download would be that a lot of education, we need to put out a lot more education for parents so they can sit and talk to their parents so they will self-regulate as much as possible, in addition to parents monitoring what they're downloading and putting restrictions on stuff, and maybe even access to YouTube for kids and not just youtube.com and so on and so on and so forth on the children's devices. So a bit of that, but just a lot of education, a lot of talking to parents, a lot of talking to parents, talking to their children to ensure that their children are protected. Okay, my team just shared with me, we have great prizes, and I will kindly entreat all our participants and audience to stay on. We've got courtesy of Panda. we've got some lovely giveaways. So please stay on to the end, and we sure to share that with you. Yes. Okay. So now I have a question. How about tips in general? Tips on how parents can keep their children safe online. Can you talk a bit about that in general? Yes.
Yeah. So online in general there's some pretty important things, and they kind of align with IT best practices. So a good example of this would be something that we do in IT called patching, which is the regular updating of software. And this extends down to all classes of devices. So you should make sure, at least once a year, you make sure that you update the mobile device software on your children's devices. The reason we do those updates is because these devices have inherent vulnerabilities, and it's not particularly hard to exploit those vulnerabilities, and they're only mitigated by patching the devices. So you should really take updates, as they're so called, on your phone. You should really take them quite seriously, because most of them, especially if you take the time to go and look at the changelog, you will see most of the updates are security related. So you can have that drastically affect your kids. So definitely do your updates. And then it can be quite tricky. It also depends on how technically savvy, what age your children are at, how technically savvy are they, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've met some youngsters that are certainly considerably more capable than their parents, and the chance that a parent is going to be effectively able to web filter the child, is quite slim. In fact, when I used to do tech support desk, I used to joke that parental control was not for parents to control their kids, it's for kids to control their parents.
Absolutely.
Because they're often more dangerous online than the children's themselves. So it is important that you do practice safe online behaviors yourself, especially if you are sharing resources. So if there's a home computer that everybody has access to, the safety aspect applies to everybody. You've got to do those updates. You've got to limit what kind of content you access, all that kind of stuff. And then another thing that would be pretty high up on this list is limiting your children's exposure to pirated content. So it's very common to download TV shows, to download games with activation cracks, all that kind of stuff. And it's exciting and it's cool to do this, but it comes with a significant inherent risk. Pirated material very often includes malware. It's, of course, completely unregulated, and the tools and the codecs that you maybe need to play that media, or the websites that are used to propagate that media, all represent significant risk, much higher than what you would get out of a traditional website that you'd be visiting.
Right. Absolutely right. So basically, parents need to patch their computer, their devices, or devices that children have access to. And patching is actually quite easy. You just have to allow the various vendors, so whether it's an Apple device or an Android device, for the regular updates to occur. And then also, if you're using a home computer, I guess they should keep it in the living room or in a common area. And one of the other things that I think works for some parents is that they enable profiles also, so that you have a profile for adults and you have a profile for children. So then the adults can safely do what they need to do, their searches and stuff online. But when the children log on, most operating systems will allow for parents to set age restrictions, so that if you have a 5-year-old child, he's not going to be able to access adult content whilst he's doing searches and stuff online. Okay, all right.
Yes, so that is a capability, but I would sort of highlight one of the things we found is that as far as content exposure, sure, that's perfectly valid. Have different profiles, all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't solve your risk against raw cybercrime itself. So if you on your profile download a computer virus accidentally, it's going to affect all of your profiles, and it's going to end up exposing, if your children log in and it's a toolbar that's showing, explicit content or something like that, or redirecting you to websites or prompting for credit card details, your children will get exposed to that as well. So, sure, having separate user profiles is perfectly useful, and knowing the password to your children's user profiles if they do have passwords.
Right.
Certainly have a password on yours, and then limiting that. But yeah, certainly from a content perspective, that'll help, but it won't solve the malware problem. So again, the best practices are the safe practices. If you can, try to stick to that.
Okay. Now, I have another question in here. Now, how do parents protect their children from chats? You see, because a lot of these online games and consoles and stuff enable chat features, either text chatting or voice chatting. What are some of the ways, or how would you recommend? How do you protect your children from ensuring that whilst they are playing their favorite games online, they are not talking to strangers and stuff like that, either by chats or by actual telephone conversations? Yes.
Okay, so look, I mean, nowadays chats, and then of course VoIP while people are gaming, be it through their PC or through their console, those are primary vectors. Chats these days, especially if it's through a service like Microsoft or Sony with the PlayStations or what have you,
right,
they're already actually quite regulated. So chat content, it's very difficult, especially if you are. And this is very important. When you sign up on one of these platforms, is to use your correct details. So make sure that if they ask for your date of birth, you put in your child's date of birth. Just hold on me 1 second. Sorry, I just need to clear my throat. So fill in the correct date of birth for your children, because that will enforce automatic restrictions on the type of player that they can be paired up with when they play. Especially if those players are abusive, they won't be exposed to the younger players. And then also we'll have additional filtering in place so that they won't be exposed to things like swear words, that kind of thing. VoIP is unfortunately a lot more challenging, because it's not, it's a lot more difficult to detect what is malicious speech.
exactly.
So that I think your best approach there is to educate your children that there is a potential risk, to make sure that they are aware that it is actually ultimately a game. Every now and then there is going to be somebody who, it could just be another child. There's the cyberbullying and stuff that we spoke about. That's children versus children. And these are actually, you would actually expect your children to socialize with other kids. So that channel can be very difficult to monitor. And the best thing for you to then do is to make sure that you're communicating with your children, that they're well adjusted in that content, in that context, and then that will, that'll set them in better stead to be able to handle when those kinds of incidents occur. And surely they will. I mean, based on the numbers, it's very likely that at some stage you will be exposed to inappropriate content, to some form of bullying or abuse. So it's very important also, as much as we're trying to limit our children's accessibility to this stuff, you do also have to develop their mental constituency to be able to actually handle it themselves when they do encounter it.
Right. Okay. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that in addition to protecting, especially it's easier to protect chats, but VoIP conversations on games and stuff and online pages and platforms, it will be much better to also communicate to our children, to ensure that when they have conversations that they particularly find disturbing, they come to us and tell us about it. And we parents are open enough and welcoming of such engagement, so that our children can come to us whenever they engage with other children, or sometimes even adults pretending to be children, having inappropriate conversations or bullying them online, and so on and so on and so forth. Yes, okay. Let's see, do you have any other questions? No. Okay, well, I guess I would say that, so in the combination of tech, so it's a combination, I guess the best way to protect our children is a combination of using the right technology, like the Panda Family Dome, a lot of education, and a lot of engagement with our children as they use the internet. Is there anything else you would like to add to that, please?
Oh, look, and the main thing is also, you know, your engagement with the digital community, because children pick up on how you interact yourself on social media and with your other, I guess, online habits. So, you know, if you're practicing safe online behaviors, chances are your children will filter through that, and you will lower their exposure. So be conscious that what you do online as well will also potentially affect them.
Right, of course, yeah, because children tend to copy what their parents are doing, and what their peers are doing. So if we set the right examples, it's easier for them to follow that as well. Okay, thank you so very much, Matthew. Do we have any other questions? Yes, I think. Yes, for people joining us through Facebook, can you kindly send a hi so that we can get your names? This is for the raffle, and this is for the prize that that we are going to give out. Yes. Okay, whilst wait for that, I just will share some tips also. Some we've spoken about, general tips on how parents can keep their children safe online. So some of the things they can do is keep the computer in their living room or in a common area so that everybody can see what they're doing. Install antivirus computers on the family computers, talk to children about appropriate content and sites that may not be suitable. Keep in mind that people are not always who they say they are online, and teach your children on how important it is to be cautious online, particularly when they're chatting or corresponding with people they haven't met in real life. Matthew, you've been extremely generous with your time. Thank you so very much.
Oh, absolute pleasure. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you. Yes. Well, my team and everybody's asking to see your face. So would you mind doing a quick video?
Sorry. Yes. So I've got a multi-monitor setup. So I just need to scoot over to my laptop so we can get to the webcam. And nice. There we go.
Yeah.
Hi guys. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Yes.
Yeah, all working from home here and that kind of thing.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Thanks so very much. Team, do we what are we doing with that, with the raffle? Yes. Okay, sure thing. Okay, all right. Now, I guess whilst we wait for them to get the raffle ready, can you tell us a bit of what else Panda has been doing in security, for not just for the family, in the family space also, whilst we wait to hear for them? Yes.
Okay, so there's a pretty significant risk at the moment with something called ransomware.
Yes.
Now, yeah, you would have seen this in the news. In fact, regularly there are large clients that are ending up with encrypted data, with data leakage events as a result. And it's going to be, especially while there is still a prevalence of cryptocurrencies, ransomware is going to be the kind of threat that we deal with in the future, or for the foreseeable future, I guess.
Now, before you go on, sorry, Matthew, what is ransomware for our non-tech users and participants? What's ransomware?
Yes. Okay, so ransomware is effectively a very simple type of virus that encrypts your content or steals your content and then extorts it back from you for a ransom. So this could be encrypting your content so that you're not able to view it. And we've done plenty of cases where, you know, somebody will phone in and it's their home computer with their, you know, all the photos of their entire child's, you know, life have been encrypted by a hacker, and they're being charged some ridiculous, you know, something like $500 in order to decrypt those pictures again.
Right.
So ransomware, it's a major issue for companies, but it's just as dangerous for end users. Now, So ransomware, it's a type of virus, but it's a type of virus that is, it's only a virus in name. It's not actually a virus from a digital perspective. So, I mean, really all ransomware does is zip up your stuff. You know, you've probably used an archiving or a zip utility before. It effectively just does that, but with a password. So what this means is that ransomware is actually very difficult to detect for antivirus products because they look so much like legitimate applications. And that means that it's very easy, especially if you have email on your computer, or if you don't have antivirus, to download something, either actively downloading it from the website or through what we call a drive-by download, which is when you just visit a website and in the background the website uses a mechanism to download and install something on your machine. And nowadays with modern iSeries processors, you know, a computer can be encrypted in a matter of minutes. And once that's done, in fact, once that's done, ransomware is actually quite nice in that it likes to delete itself when it's done. So you're no longer infected, but you're left with all your encrypted data and then a rather rude ransom note encouraging you to pay money. So the biggest issue, if there's one thing that you are aware of as far as online risks, ransomware should be it. And it should be an issue not only for you to protect yourself at home, but you should, with the companies and the services that you engage with, you should be confident that they're taking the ransomware threat seriously. So what has become an issue is the theft of data. So hospitals losing patient records, schools losing student information, financial institutions leaking financial information. And when that information goes out, and it gets made public, which invariably it does. It always ends up, you know, on the dark web somewhere, and then it's basically public. It now makes you, as the user, much more vulnerable to scams and fraud. So now your personal details are there. They, you know, a third party can just look that up and then, you know, implement one of the numerous types of social engineering attacks against you. So data security and data privacy, especially the threat of ransomware, is something you should take serious at home, but also for the businesses, services, and companies that you use or work for.
Okay. All right. Great. All right. Thanks so very much for that. My team has just requested that the audience kindly fill the form. We have about 5 minutes to wrap this up. I think there's one last question. If a child uses an online virtual machine to access content or bypass configurations via VPN, is there a way to prevent this? This is a very tech-savvy child. Did you get that question? Yes. If a child uses an online VM, virtual machine, to access content or bypass configurations via VPN, is there a way to prevent this? I think we should employ that child.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, he's definitely going to have a job one day. I mean, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, your root cause is the fact that the child has access to VPNs, and VPNs are a mechanism with which to browse the internet. So you have to stop that. You know, once somebody can get onto a VPN, you can't really filter them, at least not on your side. And certainly the VPN providers aren't doing that. So you've got to start there, which is at the breakout. So one of the mechanisms, we actually didn't touch on this earlier, but we were talking about having different accounts for your users. And what you should definitely do is try have your child run as what we call a standard user in Windows. So not as an administrator. Because an administrator can uninstall software, they can make system changes and configuration changes. And if you limit your child's ability to do that, they're not going to be able to use the techniques you're describing. So limiting permissions on their devices is going to be how you solve that specific problem.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a good chance that they can figure out how to change their permissions back as well if they're that tech savvy.
Exactly. Yes. Because if he's stuff, yes. Sorry, are you okay?
Yeah, no, sorry, just a bit of a scratch in my throat.
Sorry about that.
Nice.
Okay. So how's the raffle going to go?
We have the names over there.
Okay.
Go
Okay.
through it and then you pick one person.
Okay.
So everybody who has filled the form
Yes.
gets a Panda Advanced AV.
Okay.
Yeah, just for watching.
Okay.
And then there's a special welcome to Raffle who gets a Panda family door.
Okay.
Yes.
All righty. So what just got shared by my team is that everybody who's filled the form gets Panda AV for 1 year. And I have here a special a bowl with names, and one person is going to get Panda Family Dome. Thanks to Panda, yes. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one out. It's transparent, absolutely transparent. It's a clear bowl, so you can see. And I have picked up Rebecca Deku. So my team will be in touch with you. And you have won yourself the Panda Family Dome. Hopefully you make good use of it and you're able to protect your young ones with it. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Matthew. You've been extremely generous. Thanks to the team at Panda, Glenn, everybody else for making this happen and for all the great prizes. Today's attendance and engagement has been good. Thank you all, dear participants, for your engagement. It's been most great having you on board. Thank you all so very much. And be sure to join us on our next session. Thank you. Matthew.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. It's a good one.
All right, cheers.
Cool.
All right, bye-bye.